are kicking off episode 26 of the podcast devoted to the classic and sometimes not so classic genre cinema of yesteryear with the song Confital Bay. It is from the band the Bucannan. They are a surf band based out of Spain, and this is their latest release. It's a single that you can pick up, well, many places. You can go to Bandcamp. You can find them on Spotify. They're all over, and I recommend you check them out when you're done listening to this episode of Bride of Monster Kid Radio. Big thanks to the Bucannan for letting us play their music here on the show. There will be links in the show notes over at monsterkidradio.net for you to go check it out for yourself. Highly recommend it, and it does have the Monster Kid Radio seal of approval. My name is Derek M. Cook, and I'd like to welcome you to the show. I'm the writer, host, and producer of what we do here, and what we're doing here this month is 2025 Lucha de Mayo. Lucha de Mayo is our look at luchador movies. So often, these luchador movies don't get talked about when you talk about classic monster movies. A lot of times, they're just as good, if not better, than some of the other similarly budgeted efforts coming out from the Americas or Europe. I love these movies. I happen to be a fan of professional wrestling, of course, and being a fan of all things luchador, mixing wrestling with monsters, I'm all in. This week we are talking about the movie, it's just called Blue Demon. It's from 1965. We haven't gotten our Blue Demon on yet this year for Lucha de Mayo, so it's time to get into the Blue Demon mindset with the first film featuring him in the lead role. And he does fight a monster. Trust me, we're going to get to it with a returning voice to the podcast. Kenny from old Mexico is going to be here to talk about this Blue Demon film. It's going to be a good time. I had a good time. I think Kenny had a good time. I hope you have a good time listening to it. But we're going to get to that after we hear Mark Matzke's Beta Capsule review, where he's been reviewing every installment of the entire Ultraman franchise. He's still working on Ultraman Ace right now, and I almost fired him over the pun that he made at the end of his segment, but really, you gotta love what Mark does. I can't fire that guy. Who else is going to help us follow along with the Ultraman saga? He's the man, so you should check him out. And if you want more Mark-flavored goodness, by the way, I don't think I talk about this enough. There are links in the show notes, of course, but check out Small Town Monsters, smalltownmonsters.com. They put out videos and other cool merch and media involving cryptids. Mark's really into the cryptid scene. I recommend checking out what Small Town Monsters does, smalltownmonsters.com. After you're done listening to this episode of the podcast, of course. So we're going to get to Mark Matzke's Beta Capsule review. We're going to get to Kenny and I talking about Blue Demon right after this.
Time is running out for the people of the Asylum of the Insane. Asylum of the Insane, where madness is the norm. Filmed in Horoscope. See thrilling scenes in 3D. Three-dimensional terror jumps off the screen and into your lap. Obtain your free 3D blood shield glasses upon entering the theater. Rated GP, but not recommended for impressionable children. Asylum of the Insane, produced in Hollywood by maniacs.
It's coming on stage. It's no show for sissies. See 2 out-of-this-world horror shows in person. See Dr. Ragnar and his Nightmare of Movie Monsters. You'll see the Scream's latest and most horrible movie monsters alive in person. See the Teenage Frankenstein, the Fly, the Colossal Beast, the Daughter of Dracula, Rodan, and the Flying Monster. These monsters are not on film, but alive in person on the stage and in the audience. See what happens when Teenage Frankenstein meets Dracula's daughter. All this plus stage show number 2, Spooks a Poppin'. We warn you, this is the most on stage, in person, 2 blood-warming horror shows.
Live from the land of light in Nebula M78, home of the mighty Ultra Heroes, it's Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review. Ultraman Ace, Episode 40, Return the Panda. Dan Umezu accompanies his friend Motoko to a corner store owned by a man who really loves panda bears. The shop owner very generously gives Motoko a stuffed panda as a New Year's gift, but not long after he's robbed by a mysterious man in black. Hokuto, on patrol in the neighborhood, gives chase, but cannot apprehend the panda thief, who runs at speeds of over 60 kilometers per hour. Late one night, Dan sees a real panda outside his apartment window, initiating a chain of events that leads Hokuto to a remote warehouse, where he learns the real culprit is Alien Steel, who, well, likes to steal stuffed pandas, and real ones as well. His cover blown, Alien Steel grows to terrible monster size, but the presence of Dan and Motoko complicates matters, since they would see Hokuto transform into Ace if he tried it. Will Hokuto be forced to helplessly watch Steel's rampage? After a long stretch of excellent episodes, Return the Panda, the first Ace of 1973, stumbles a bit, with an odd tone and many random happenings. Be that as it may, Episode 40 has several redeeming qualities, beginning with the special effects and suit design for Steel, which harkens back to skinny aliens such as Ultraman's famous foe, Baltan. And let me address the animal in the room. Why devote an entire episode to pandas? Simply put, there really was a panda craze happening in Japan at the time. On October 28, 1972, Tokyo's Ueno Zoo celebrated the arrival of 2 giant pandas as a gift from China to commemorate the normalization of diplomatic relations between the two countries. Their arrival more than doubled the amount of visitors to the zoo, jumping from 4 million to 9.2 million in 1973. Therefore, one could say the producers of Ultraman Ace were wisely capitalizing on all the real-life pandemonium. For Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review, this is Mark Matzke reporting.
Coming soon, this June, it's the Monster Bash Conference at the Pittsburgh Marriott North in Cranberry Township. Fans of classic horror and science fiction films and TV will gather from across the United States and beyond. It's where you can meet and get autographs from movie and TV actors and actresses. This June 20th through the 22nd, 2025, meet Catherine Lee Scott and Sharon Smythe from the original Dark Shadows TV show, plus writer and zombie from the original Night of the Living Dead, John Russo, and the kids and grandkids of the original Universal monsters, Frankenstein, creature from the Black Lagoon, Dracula, the Wolfman, and the Mummy, Ron Chaney, Lynn Lugosi, Renee Browning. Also appearing, the Monsters movie grandpa Daniel Roebuck, TV horror host Son of Ghoul, an Ohio TV legend, and horror host Mr. Lobo. Renegade monster movie director David The Rock Nelson will be filming on site as well. You'll love shopping over 100 vendor tables featuring movie collectibles, DVDs, Blu-rays, vintage toys, vinyl records, monster magazines, comic books, and more to boggle your eyes. Rare film screenings, special talks, and live game shows where you can win great prizes. It's all part of Monster Bash at the Pittsburgh Marriott North, June 20th through the 22nd, 2025. For discounted advance admission, go to the website monsterbash.us. That's monsterbash.us. Or call 724-238-4317 for more information.
We love the Monster Bash! Woo!
More prophetic than his prediction of space travel in Things to Come.
More imaginative than his laser beams in War of the Worlds. More frightening than his warning of nuclear holocaust in The Time Machine. From H.G. Wells, history's most credible prophet, now comes his most incredible story. Empire of the Ants. The terrifying tale of civilization fighting for survival against armies of giant ants 10 feet tall who control the human population by drugging them into submission. And man the master becomes man the slave. Joan Collins, Robert Lansing, H.G. Wells' Empire of the Ants from American International Pictures. Rated PG, parental guidance suggested. Empire of the Ants. They shall inherit the earth sooner than you think.
This is Count Dracula, and I'm here to offer you a friendly warning. Derek and his guests often get excited, and occasionally this results in revealing key plot points of the movies they're discussing. You know how the children of the night, monster kids, can get sometimes. So consider yourself warned, and don't come begging to me to kill them for their transgressions afterward. I have more pressing issues to take care of, like that pesky Van Helsing.
Listeners, keeping in theme, an accidental theme for this year's Lucha de Mayo, I'm watching luchador movies that I'd never seen before. I have seen a lot of them, but for whatever reason, well, there's a couple of different reasons probably, I'd never seen Blue Demon from 1965. Is it just Blue Demon, or is there like a Blue Demon or a Blue Demon subtitle? Kenny from Old Mexico, let me know, man.
The only thing I've seen, it's called Blue Demon, and then they put under some of the things I've seen Demonio Azul, so they're like translating Blue Demon. But yeah, that's the title. It could have been called Blue Demon in the House of the Wolfman, or in the Castle of the Wolfman. It could have had a subtitle name, but it just called it Blue Demon.
Blue Demon.
So it was kind of his intro solo movie.
Well, somebody who needs no introduction here on the show is Kenny. Now, Kenny used to do the famous Monsters of Filmland segment. He is a podcast luminary, a Monster Kid radio irregular, and a dear friend. How have you been, man?
Doing pretty good. Watching lots of movies and enjoying life a little bit, and working hard at the same time. I know there's at least one person who misses Kenny's segment, me.
Well, I miss it too, and you're welcome back anytime.
But I'm hoping I backed off a little bit. I was just getting too busy, and it was kind of being a chore a little bit, where it was like, oh, I have to do this. So I wanted to just take a break for a little bit. And I'm hoping, when there's a film that I know, this movie was definitely covered. The movies you've been doing lately, there haven't been any that have stuck out to me like, oh, I'm going to look that up. I always like to make my segments that matched your theme. Sometimes it was fun and hard to do, because it's like, well, I'll have to try to figure something out because this movie was definitely not covered. But now I'm like, okay, I'm waiting for when a movie's covered. And I missed one. When you did the Nosferatu, the Werner Herzog version, I knew it was on the cover of one of the issues, and it's like, but I was just like in that stage, I was just like, no, I just don't want to do this right now. And it's not because I don't love doing it. It's not because I'm fed up with it or something like that. It's more just, there was just so much going on, in my life that I was like, it's just like, okay, I really have to try to fit this in. And it was getting to be like, I was getting sloppy with it. So I wanted to take a break, but when the next time, I do hope I can come back when there's a movie that's like, I know, or it's like when you do a kaiju week, I've done everything kaiju.
Yeah.
I've done everything Mexican monster movies, and I could send you the repeat. Hey, here's the one I did, but we'll let people miss me, and then I'll come back.
There you go. Well, here, I'll tell you a little secret. Don't tell anybody, just between you and me. Okay. Lean in real close. All right. In July, we're doing kaiju movies, but before we get to the kaiju movies for Kaiju July, we're going to have some werewolf films in the month of June. So,
okay.
So don't tell anyone though. Okay, just so you know.
All right. Well, I know the Wolfman in many different forms was on the cover, and I know there's several good werewolf movies covered. So if you cover one that I know has been covered. Maybe I'll throw in a surprise segment in June.
That would be awesome. I'll keep you posted. But that's looking too far ahead. If you look too far ahead, you're going to miss the guy that's about to give us a body slam. We're going to miss the luchadors. We got to talk about our man, Blue Demon. I know if we're going to talk about a Blue Demon movie, we got to have you on the show. He's your guy, right?
It's been a while since we've done that. My story is, why am I into these Blue Demon movies is in 2014, so it's over 10 years now, Ron Adams of the Monster Bash invited Blue Demon Jr. to come to Pittsburgh, and then he invited me to come. And I said, "Are you going to come?" I said, "I wasn't planning to." He says, "Well, if you could come, it'd be great because we need someone to translate because his wife doesn't speak any English and he barely speaks English." I said, "Oh yeah, that'd be great." So I did. I went and I met Blue Demon. I actually went to the airport. And the thing that was just amazing is that when I went with the driver and Juan from the Fifth Dimension Films, he came and he didn't have his mask on, and that was like a privilege and an honor, and it's just like we're part of a secret society that we saw him and knew who he was. And we were debating, is he going to come with his mask? He can't, he has to go through security, all that. Well, no, he's going to put it on at some point, and no, we saw him without his mask. And then I spent the weekend with him getting lunch. So he took Sunday off, and we spent all day Sunday in Pittsburgh, and we went to the Andy Warhol Museum, and we tried to get in the Steelers game, but they were sold out. And we went to downtown Pittsburgh, ate in an Indian restaurant. We just had a wonderful time. And he won me over. It's like he spent his time with me, making me a fan of Blue Demon Jr. at the same time as that. And the reason I started doing these movies is at one point during our time together, I asked him, which of your dad's films did you consider the best one? And he just named, I think it was Santo and Blue Demon versus the Monsters. And that was the one they were showing that weekend during the Monster Bash. And I was able to watch it there with a crowd of luchador and Mexican movie fans. And I was like, this is an okay movie for a luchador movie, but Blue Demon's role wasn't that great. I was like, come on, Blue. This can't, but I didn't really argue with him or anything at the point. But it's just like, I want to know if this is really the best thing that he did, because in the whole movie he's kind of like a zombie. He's taken in by the bad guys and becomes like a zombie. He didn't really have a lot of acting to do. I thought, are his solo movies that bad that he couldn't say, no, my dad's movie, this movie where he was the star, is the best one? I was like, oh no, I'm going to find this out. So this is going to be our fourth one that we've done, you and I. The first three that's what I had on my shelf. Hey, I've got this movie. Let's do this one. And for this time, I decided let's start from the beginning. And so we're going to see Blue Demon, the very first of his solo films. That's what we're going to talk about today. And that's the reason why I'm doing this. I'm trying to figure out in my own mind which really is the best Blue Demon movie. And are his solo movies that bad that we have to say, oh, no, it's one of the Santo and Blue Demon combinations, where really Santo is usually the main thing, and Blue Demon's just like, Robin in a Batman movie,
Right.
So we've been having fun with these, and I enjoy these. I don't think this one that we watched this time is as good as the later ones that we did watch earlier. But after my second viewing, which I did today, it's not horrible. It's not boring.
I really liked it. I actually really liked it. I didn't know what I was in for, because almost every Blue Demon movie I've seen, he's teamed up with somebody. And like you said, he's the Robin to Santo's Batman. Just how it was. Santo was kind of the big draw, the big name, and Blue Demon was like second, I hate to say second tier, but basically he was kind of below Santo. But this one, it's just him. He doesn't have a sidekick. He's not a sidekick. I mentioned at the very beginning of this is one I hadn't seen, and I think I know why. It's hard to see. It's not easy to get your hands on. The version that we watched, the transfer, is not very good. But there's still enough there that really held my attention, and I really liked this one.
It was hard because of the bad transfer, and that's one of my biggest wishes, that he would be able to get his dad's movies on some kind of a Blu-ray set and get them remastered or whatever needs to be done. But I don't know what's available out there, but there's nothing online of this particular movie that looks good, and that's it's a shame because I think a nice clear copy would have made it. But like that first viewing of it was like there's some parts of it where it's like, what's going on? Because it was kind of hard to see what was going on.
Well, especially at the very beginning, as the movie's starting, it's at night and it's just not very well lit to begin with, and it's hard to watch.
Yeah, but once you figure out what's going on and everything else, this is actually pretty good. And there's, during our talk tonight, we'll see some of these little points that came out at me, like this isn't that bad. Where it's because we're seeing a cheesy print of it, you would think, oh, this is kind of a cheesy movie, but actually it wasn't that bad. And like you say, it grew on me. And the second viewing, I enjoyed it. Mm-hmm.
It packs a punch. It brings a lot. First of all, this is the first movie in this year's Lucha de Mayo where we finally get some arena wrestling, which is awesome. I love the vibe of arena wrestling versus like stadium wrestling, or not stadium, I'm sorry, studio wrestling, that sort of thing. We have some arena wrestling. I don't know where they shot it, but it's awesome to see an honest-to-goodness wrestling match.
And I was taking note of that this time. The first time I watched it, the wrestling match, it seems like they had like one camera set up right on the ringside. So it's like where the old lady who's banging on the thing is standing, When I go to the wrestling matches here, the luchador matches here in Mexico, there's like several YouTubers that film, and they don't care if they're blocking people. They're there filming it, and I've done that too. I've been like, okay, I try to get a front row seat, and I'll get up there with my camera and with my phone, and that's why I feel like it was just like they were like in our laps. Mm-hmm. And then like the first part of the first match was basically they showed basically a 2-fall match that Blue Demon won in 2 falls. And the first part of it was just like this one camera, but you just felt like it was real. You feel like we'll film your match with whoever you're with this night, and we're going to set the camera up. And they would cut some of the crowd shots, and there was crowd shots with actors from the movie, and there were crowd shots, sporadically put in there. But you just kind of really felt like this is a documentary of a real match. And the wrestling wasn't that flamboyant or as high-flying as they are today, or even some of the later movies. It was kind of a simpler wrestling. And when I started liking wrestling in the 70s, I was in one of your favorite towns. I was in Oregon, and I was see wrestling out of Portland, live wrestling from Portland, Oregon. And this would be like a second card match that we were watching. It wouldn't be like the top match where it's like more flamboyant and there's a tag team and it's a big deal. It's like they're like a younger wrestlers that are doing body slams and things. So it wasn't the greatest wrestling, but it just felt more real. It felt like it was a real match, and not even we all know it's kind of set up and they're rehearsed and all that, but it didn't feel that way. And then the second part of the match, they would have camera shots inside, so they're like inside the ring. And the next time you watch it, pay attention to the editing. They did some fantastic editing because one of the keys to editing action is what you edit on the action. So you start on one camera, they're moving, and then you cut and you continue to move it on the other camera. That makes it look seamless. And there's a lot of that. Like they had 2 cameras, but at the same time, it's like, how come we're not seeing that other camera in that lower angle shot from the ringside? Why aren't we seeing the camera? And it's like, is it 2 cameras? How could they have done it? Because you don't see the camera, and you're getting a pretty full view of the ring. So it was really kind of interesting just to kind of break that down on a cinematic and, how did they do this type thing, even though it's very simple. But the simplicity of it makes it feel documentary. It makes it feel real.
It felt real and intimate to me. I know I just said, this is an arena versus like a studio. An arena is a bigger, platform, much more people, but it felt much more intimate because of how they had to film it or how they chose to film it. And it just felt more visceral to me, and I loved it. I thought it was great. This is probably the most exciting wrestling match I've seen for this year's Lucha de Mayo in those films. It's fantastic.
And that's it. Like it was like a simple nothing too fancy, and nothing, not too many, off the ropes and flying and all that. But there was a handful of drop kicks, a couple suplexes, and a lot of body slams. Some kicking and hitting, but simple wrestling, but it looked so real because of the way they filmed it.
Yeah, this is traditional 2 out of 3 falls, luchador wrestling. I know you said earlier it's not a lot of flying off the ropes and all that. And I like that stuff. I watch all Elite Wrestling, and that's a lot of it is there. I love that stuff a lot. But, Blue Demon, Santo, those guys, they weren't built to jump off the ropes like that. They were barrel-chested heroes, and they are just pounding away at each other and doing the body slams and the suplexes and a few stretches here and there. It's great.
Speaking of the Lucha Libre, it's been a couple years ago, and I don't think I had a chance to talk about this, but Blue Demon Jr. came to my town, and he had a wrestling match. It was funny. It was going to be on my wife's birthday. My birthday's 3 days after, and I saw that it was painted on the wall. That's how they announced the wrestling here. Some guy paints the mask on the wall, and this is where it's going to be. And it's like, did I just see Blue Demon? I just stopped the car and jumped out. I was like, oh my gosh, he's coming. And it's like, it's my wife's birthday. It's like, I said, Juana, can I celebrate my birthday on your birthday? I want to go see the Blue Demon Jr. So we went to see Blue Demon Jr., and, it had been, maybe 7-8 years since we had met. And I had pictures of our trip, my trip in Pittsburgh. And I said, hey, do you remember me? Oh, yeah. And then I was in the front row, of course. And I don't know if they rehearsed this, planned this, but at one point, one of the big things was his opponent was out, and the opponent was like, suffering outside in the chairs, like the chair next to mine, basically. And who does a flying leap out of the ring to smash into him and almost run me over with Blue Demon Jr. And I'm like filming it with my phone,
Oh man!
And it was like, wow. And it's some of the crazy stuff that they do. And Blue Demon Jr. had to be that time probably in his 50s, early 50s or late 40s. He's close to 50. He's in his 50s, I think, now. And that's to go to a wrestling match and see the wrestling in this movie. The wrestling they show in this movie is kind of like, you get a sense of that. Is that fake or not? These guys are super athletes, and they sacrifice their bodies for their art.
Oh, they do.
And I remember my dad took me to some wrestling. He would be, oh, this is fake and all this, but I just love wrestling so much. And after my dad and I were going to move to Pennsylvania, and there were going to be 2 matches, 2 nights, 2 weeks in a row in Eugene, with all my favorite wrestlers from the Portland wrestlers, the Northwest guys, and we went to live wrestling. And my dad was just like, yeah, this is fake, but man, they're really good athletes, and you could just see how they torture themselves. You get that sense, and I got that right in my face.
Yeah.
The luchadores, the Mexican luchadores, even the new amateur local guys just do these crazy jumps and crazy jumping off the ropes and crazy moves and stuff.
I don't understand how they do it. And, we just lost, a wrestling legend. Sabu just passed away, and he just had his retirement match 3 weeks ago, and he was going, to the wall, and he was a hardcore guy. So he was doing barbed wire ropes and, falling out of the ring and hitting tables and concrete and all this other stuff. I'm sure the concrete thing wasn't planned, but still, and his body was scarred with memories of all these matches that he had put his body through, and it's a hard life, man. And it's hard work. And, these guys are charismatic too, and they can even carry movies, feature films like the one, we watched this time around. This is, there's a lot that Blue Demon is not on screen for. I think the parts that I kind of got restless with this movie is when Blue Demon's not around, and I know we've got to spend some time with the villain, and we've got to spend some time with the other characters. But I did find myself getting anxious saying, where's Blue Demon? Where's Blue Demon? I need. Oh,
Yeah,
okay. There's Blue Demon. Okay.
Yeah, there were some points of exposition with the doctor and everything. But there's one aspect of that I found interesting. The main doctor that works with Blue Demon doing the investigation of everything, he had a daughter, and that daughter was actually dating the villain.
Yeah.
And when you first watch it, and I don't know if you would have noticed or really can see him, like in the version that we had to watch, it was hard to make out, because there's kind of a long shot, but so there's this guy and there's this girl, and so it's the daughter, and you don't know that it's the villain. And then when they show the villain with his henchman, and you realize this guy, and it's like, okay, this is the villain. He's talking about this stuff. And then they cut into the house, and he's there with the doctor and the girl, and they're talking, and it's just like, oh, everything. And I thought that was kind of an interesting story aspect of that part of it, without the Blue Demon part, that they would have this villain is actually part of the family that's hunting for him. And I thought that was kind of an interesting.
It is
plot point in the story there.
Oh, I thought so too. There's a lot of stuff in here that I wasn't expecting, and that was part of it. We had the villain being so close to the professor through dating, through the romance that he had with the daughter. And the other thing that I really liked about this movie is something that I sometimes get away from when I watch a luchador movie, because my go-to luchador movies are typically the bright, full color, garish sometimes extravaganzas, and it's really hard to do gothic horror when everything is in bright yellow and bright pink and bright blue and all that. This is a black and white movie, and there's a lot of gothic horror, old dark house stuff going on. I want every old dark house movie I watch from now on to have a luchador. I mean, this was great.
Let's go search the abandoned castle. Let's go search the abandoned castle.
Right. The Scooby Gang needs to add a luchador, that's what they need, you got Blue Demon and the Professor. The Professor is wielding a shotgun, and Blue Demon's wielding nothing, because why would he? And they're snooping around and checking things out, and there's people behind paintings and people cutting the cord for a chandelier to drop and all that, trying to get them.
Cat.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Oh, it's so good.
I was noting all the haunted house tropes that they threw in there, and the whole time the music going. It was fun and interesting to see that. And that, yes, this is definitely from the older Santo in the Wax Museum, the Santo and the Vampire, black and white, gothic horror film before they went into the super spy stuff, which in 1966 forward, they're like secret agents more than, just wrestlers. But here, this guy is like a wrestler who just happens to be friends with this professor, and he's going to check this thing out, what's happening. And so, yeah, it was cool. And another aspect of that, and one of the things that I liked about this movie, the very beginning is like, there's two ways you can handle horror. But I use like King Kong and the Seventh Voyage of Sinbad as examples. Okay, King Kong build up. There's like 30 minutes of just build up before we see the monster. We know what's going on. There's some romance. They're in New York City. They're on a boat, and they get to the tribe, and it starts getting interesting. And then you see the monster. But in Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, they're on the boat. They get on the beach, and you see the monster. And that's kind of how they made this movie. It starts out dark. You got some romance going on, and then you got a monster, man. Wolfman coming out. Is it a Wolfman? Is it a Batman? Is it a Dogman? It's hard to say, but it comes out, and he kills these people. And it's funny. There's about 5 different times in the action outside of the ring. It seems like their main weapon was throwing them down the hill, and they're doing barrel rolls. It's like the second time I watched it, it's like, wait a minute. Both of the two lovers that the Wolfman attacks, he gets the guy, he beats him up, throws him down the hill, and he rolls down the hill, cleverly, stunt, and it's like, okay, it's kind of dangerous, but he's careful about it, but he gets to the end, he's dead. And then he chases after the girl, catches the girl, and throws her down the hill, and she goes barrel rolling down the hill. And then Santo has a fight with someone later on, and the same thing happens. It rolls down the hill, and then at the very end, the final battle, the werewolf dies after Blue Demon throws him down the hill, and he does a barrel roll. And he transfers into a human being while he's going down. So.
Hey, if it ain't broke, man, it's working,
So that was her favorite stunt in this movie. I got a kick out of that. On my second movie watching it, I was like, okay, yeah, man. This is like Barrel Roll City here.
Yeah.
I remember being a kid going, you get to a nice grassy hill, and it's like, let's just roll down the hill.
All right, so you said it's like a Wolfman Batman. We know it's a Wolfman. Mm-hmm. You can't tell, but I mean, we know it's a Wolfman kind of thing. And this guy's turning into a Wolfman, and there's a kidnapping plot, and the professor's assistant, who's really the villain, is mixing a formula, and he's turning wrestlers into wolf people. And the plot's a little kind of all over the place, I feel like, but you still can follow it pretty easily.
Yeah, well, it was simple, and another aspect of that I enjoy is, and it helps to kind of know the culture, the Mexican culture, and how Mexican people in Mexico City talk, for example, and okay, if you talk like this, you have this certain accent, or you use these certain words. Oh, you're from this part of town, or you're from that part of town, and the bad guy and his henchmen, that the relationship there was another aspect of it. Just like, okay, this is kind of real, the way they're talking to each other, and one guy's like, I don't want to do this, and the other guy's like, I'm not going to do that. They're not just yes sir, dumb henchmen. They're kind of arguing with him and trying to, and then he's trying to convince them, and he's kind of working with them instead of them just being mindless henchmen. Because then when he's gone, and the one guy was with Blue Demon and talking with him a little bit and stuff, and you just got a sense of, this is like just a real Mexican guy. This is the way they would talk and the way they are. So I kind of enjoyed that. It might not come out as much if you without that understanding of the culture and reading subtitles, but I really got a sense that it was kind of a different relationship that you would normally see with henchmen and the bad guy. It's usually yes master, but these guys were like, I don't know, man, I don't want to end up like that guy.
Yeah. And I wanted to bring him up actually, because this guy, his name's Ursus in the movie. He's played by Guillermo Hernandez. Mm-hmm. And he's fantastic. He is just a ball of charisma, and he's kind of weaselly, but he's kind of a big guy. He's kind of laughing his way through things because, well, the guy said he's going to pay me if I keep you alive, and I mean, he's telling the professor, we're going to suck out your brains and do this, ha 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 ha, and it's wonderful. Oh, it's so fun. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's a bad guy, but he's so fun.
Yeah. I was looking at the credits for the main bad guy. He has a really distinct look, and he's did over 131 movies, and several classic Mexican movies. He was in Santo and the Vampires. He was in a Luis Buñuel film, The Brute, and but one that stuck out to me, like his most popular film in the letterbox that I use to track my movies, is a spaghetti western that he was in. Oh. Okay, it was called A Bullet for the General.
Really? Okay, yeah. I like that one too. That's a really good movie.
Yeah, and I remember it being highly rated even in Leonard Maltin's book. So it was 1967, and he is seventh billed. But the interesting thing about this to me was that he was in that movie was Klaus Kinski, Nosferatu, and another person that we all love, Bond girl, Harryhausen princess, Hammer girl, wife of Joshua Kennedy, Martine Beeswick. Yep. So this guy played in a movie with Martine Beeswick. So I was like, oh, this guy's cool,
Yeah. Oh no, man, I haven't watched A Bullet for the General in a long time, but Wow, that's cool. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And that's a
And
great
so
film, too.
he was not just in Mexican movies, but he made a lot of the Mexican westerns and stuff. Some of the horror movies, comedies. He did a lot of different things. But he was also had some international. He did Luis Buñuel's Robinson Crusoe as well.
Mhm.
He played Friday in the Robinson Crusoe, which starred an American, Dan O'Harely was Robinson Crusoe. So it was an international film. So he was well known. I didn't know him. I seen him or knew his name or anything, but looking at his credits and everything, it's like, oh, this guy was pretty well known. So
We're talking
he
about
did the job as a villain.
Yeah. The actor's name is Jamie. Is it Jamie or Jaime?
Jaime.
He's
Jaime
billed as
Fernandez.
James Fernandez in Robinson Crusoe, but
Mhm.
Jaime Fernandez. He was fantastic too. I really liked him in this movie. I liked the cast overall. Of course, Blue Demon is the draw. And he does a good job in this too. There's a couple of moments where before the wrestling match where he's like making eye contact with Professor Carl, the villain, Carl, and he makes eye contact with him and his date or the professor's daughter. And he's just kind of staring at him, and you can tell he knows what's up. He's like, he knows there's something wrong here, but we're going to go through the match anyway and all that. And it's so good. And in the match, okay, I know we talked about the wrestling. I want to go back to the wrestling again. Dude turns into a werewolf in the middle of a wrestling match, and it's the best thing ever.
Yeah.
I know we've seen people monster out before in a wrestling match. They've taken off the mask and it's like, oh no, it's something terrible. This guy does a full-on transformation as well as they could with the special effects budget they had in the ring. And he's not wearing a mask. He's wearing trunks and that's it. So we get some quick cutting editing where in one shot, he's fine. In the next shot, he's got fur starting to sprout on his skin. In the next shot, as he jumps up, he's more transformed. And I thought it was really well done for what it is. And it's awesome because he freaks out, runs out of the ring, runs down the hallway away from everybody, and they shoot him dead. Not much of a werewolf. He can just be shot by the cops, but okay.
Oh, don't you know they all use silver bullets there?
Well, yeah, I don't know the culture. I don't know.
Yeah, that they didn't really play on it was basically a medical werewolf.
Yeah.
It was a scientific werewolf. It wasn't, no legend here, no full moon, no pentagram, no silver bullet stuff. It was just, it was a guy being manipulated. It was like they were taking and said, we're going to change you into, they were told him they were going to be a strong man. And he was he was stronger and, a better wrestler before he changed. But when at that point when he was losing, then he turned into a werewolf. So,
yeah.
And whether it's, like a savage beast type of thing, they never really called it, they never said hombre lobo or, the one guy said the way they were killed, which he said, oh, was it a bear? Did a bear attack them? Because it's like, oh, their bones are all crushed. But I guess they didn't think about, oh, they were barrel rolled down the hill. That's how it happened, So they don't really call it a wolf. And the second viewing, as I looking closer, and it's kind of like the ears kind of look more, it almost look like a bat type creature. But like you say, it's whatever you want it to be, and it's a wolf man.
it basically is a wolf man thing. And I felt like they came real close to like getting into some like supernatural spooky lore. The real close, but then they backpedal away from it, and it becomes straight up science. And it's a mad scientist doing something spooky in a gothic castle somewhere. And man, I just felt like this is right at home with those other old dark house movies that we love so much. The movie, like you said, could have been called Blue Demon in the House of the Werewolf. It would have been perfect.
That's what it is. And at 80 minutes, it's like we always say, I wish we could think of another word. It's a fun time.
It is a fun time. And it even is broken up into segments.
Yeah, it almost seemed like it was broken up for television.
Yeah.
Thing. The copy we were looking at. So I'm not sure. Now, it could be a thing, in those days in Mexico, what I understand is that they would take the movies and go to the little towns and like show them in the public square, and and maybe charge a couple pesos for kids to watch these movies. And if they only had one projector, they might have had it broken up into different reels. I'm just thinking of this now, and I don't know, but that might have been why it was set up that way. Part of me, so when I was watching it, I was like, "Oh, this is kind of like almost like a TV show thing." But then I just now am thinking maybe because they would go to the towns and stuff. Maybe they had it set up where each reel was an episode, and they would have to have a break. Now, I remember when I first got to Mexico, and I would go see. And this is in the early '90s. I would go see movies, and they didn't have a nice modern American style theater when I first got there. They just started making them when I got there, and my wife and I were like the first ones to go to a Cinemark, and then they made another one called Cinemex, and then they made Cinepolis, and these are just beautiful, nice, modern cinemas. But the ones that I went to at first were like terrible. But what they would have is they'd actually have, just in a regular 90 or 100-minute movie, they would have an intermission, and you almost feel like, oh, they have to be changing reels or something, because there's no reason to have an intermission in a 90, 100-minute movie. But they would stop the movie, lights would come up, people would go to the bathroom and everything, and it'd be like a 10-minute intermission. And that was in the 90s. So in the 60s, maybe that was one of the reasons, and that maybe why the print is so bad is that some print that was traveling around, or something. I don't know. It's impossible to know, probably impossible to know, but it's something to speculate about, because why were those like chapters there?
I hadn't really thought about why. I just thought it was odd because I hadn't seen those in any of the other movies that we've ever talked about, for Lucha de Mayo, or any of the other Mexican horror movies that I've talked about here on the show or shown on the Twitch stream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of times, like if Gordon Murray would pick up a movie, he would cut those all out, or if you got a print, but maybe this print that has been transferred to video for YouTube use and all that, maybe it was a print that had been traveling around, because it's not scratched up or anything, and I don't, it's just really bad, it's just really dark, but maybe they were able to fix part of the scratching and stuff, but I don't know, but or maybe it was the print they would use to make the traveling version that they would go around with. So, and that's just a speculation that I just thought of now, because the first time I watched it, I was like, was this like a TV show, or or could it be a TV print where this is what they showed on TV? Because that's another thing in Mexico, even in the early 90s, there was one channel that would show movies, and they would have it spread out over 3 hours, because they would have commercials literally every 5 minutes. And it was very distracting and hard. And it's like, I'm not watching a movie on Channel 5, even if it's one I like or want to see. I'm not going to watch a movie on Channel 5. We're renting the video, because you'd be like getting into the movie and then a bunch of commercials, and then you're getting into a bunch of commercials. I mean, it was extreme.
Yeah.
So
if any listeners have any ideas on it, I would love to know, because I have no idea. I do want to comment because I haven't talked about the music yet, and I've got to mention the music because it's me.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the music. It's all over the top, some theremin when it's needed, gothic, horror, stereotypical stuff, and I loved that too.
I almost felt like I had heard it before. Do you feel like it was like a library music, and not made just for that particular movie?
I don't know. The composer is credited as Jorge Perez. I don't know if this was used in other movies. I know he did some other luchador films, but he also did a lot of Mexican horror movies, a lot. Mm-hmm. The Nostradamus movies, The Hell of Frankenstein, a number of other Mexican horror movies as well. So maybe that's where I heard it, but it does feel familiar, but in a good way for me. I just loved it.
Yeah. And I mean, that's like and that was funny. It reminded me of a friend of mine in Mexico City. I don't know why the subject came up, but I was like, oh, it was like for when I was there, it was hard to see Santa movies. Like they weren't on TV all the time. And people had almost forgotten them. One time I sent my sister-in-law, hey, can you go downtown and try to find some Santa movies or find some pictures or something? And she would go in and ask people, you have anything for Santa? And she said they laughed at her because like no one likes Santa anymore. Well, I remember asking him about that, and he's just like, oh yeah, those Santa movies. When he did that whistling, that just is constant through this movie, when they're walking through the haunted house and everything. And that's so typical of these movies, the Gothic ones, with that music. And it's like you say, it's effective. And with even though it's like we're seeing all the tropes of the haunted house and everything, with that music combined with it, I can imagine a little kid being scared. We're kind of jaded by it, but a little kid could be scared by it, and the music would be adding to that. And then every time they'd hear that music, they'd be scared. Something's going to come up. A cat's going to jump on me, or a skeleton's going to turn its head, or someone's looking at me through the wall picture,
Yeah. Oh man, when there is a scene, you said the skeleton's going to turn its head. That is straight out of the movie. There is a scene where Blue Demon's walking down the hallway and he passes a skeleton that's been posed up on the wall. And after Blue Demon leaves the shot, the head does turn to follow. And it's great. It's super creepy and super cool. And I want more luchadors in haunted houses now, man.
Yeah.
I love it when they're, fighting crime, doing other things too. But give me a luchador in a haunted house and I'm in. Like I said, I want to see a luchador join the Scooby Gang. I want to see, do all this stuff. That's what I want now.
Mm-hmm.
It was so fun. And there's that word again. How is it that every time I have you on, maybe it's just because we picked the best movies. Fun is the word of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's how you have to enter. I think you have to enter into these movies. All of Mexican cinema kind of has an over the top, and I've talked about this before, but it's been so long, I'll repeat it.
Yeah.
They have this over the top quality to them, and if you enter into it saying, oh, you're looking for a serious movie or whatever, that's not why you watch any Mexican movie. Lately, yes, they've done some really great movies, classic movies, but a lot of even the dramas that they do, have an over the top quality. It's just like too much is happening all at the same time. Melodrama. It's not just a drama; it's a melodrama.
Mm-hmm.
And their horror films and their comedies, they become fun because of that over the top quality. It's just like no holds barred. Let's just do everything. So, like the haunted house scenes in here, it's just like one thing after the other, one thing after the other, one thing after the other. And that's better than just them walking and walking and walking and walking and walking. No, one thing happens. No, they walk a couple steps and something else happens. And they walk another couple steps and something else happens. It's just nonstop. And so it's almost like going through a haunted house like you and Beth do, where you have, it's just one thing jumping out at you after another, and it makes it kind of. And why do we do that? Why do we want to be scared so much? Because it's fun,
Yep.
And I think that it kind of has that quality. It's not maybe as fast moving as I'm making it sound, but it was a thing where it was never boring. It wasn't like, okay, why are they doing this? Why is this going on so long? No, it's like, oh, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? What are they going to throw at him next? So
who's going to get thrown?
And when the guy shot, what I think it was a bat, he shot with a shotgun.
Yeah.
In the middle of the house.
Like, dude.
It was like, okay.
Yeah.
And that's part of the joy of these movies, that and why they're enjoyable. And because if you go into it, looking for serious filmmaking and thinking that and coming with a judgmental quality to your viewing of it, yeah, you'll say it's cheesy and this is not any good. But when you come to it as like, and you think about what was going on in the minds of the audience that was watching this, what was, if it's made for kids, or if young people are watching this, what would they enjoy it? And it's like, yes, this is great stuff, and and that word comes up again and again. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun, whether it's spooky or it's super spy stuff, whatever it is, they just come at you with everything, and that's how you have to enjoy it. You have to come in it with joy and expecting, not looking for perfect cinema, but a perfectly fun and good time.
There you go. I think that's a great way to sum it up too. That's and a great way to kind of wrap up our conversation regarding the movie. It is hard to track down in a decent transfer, but you will be rewarded for it if you make the effort to watch it and to be patient with it during the moments that are just a little too dark or too washed out.
I do want to mention that the version that you watched with the subtitles are excellent as far as their exact meaning of the Spanish into English. Sometimes I'll see the subtitles and it's like, they don't understand what they're saying or something, because that's not what they said. But this movie, the subtitles in this particular movie, they really did well with the English version. The English subtitles are excellent. There's not a whole lot of dialogue, but the dialogue there is, and my understanding of Spanish and reading the English, it's like they got it. That's exactly what they said, and I do suggest people would, try to see it twice, because you reading the subtitles, and once you get the gist of it, then watch it again to see the action and stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Before we wrap up, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Beth and I asked Robert last week. Do you think a luchador movie in which the wrestling is played for real, there's none of this, it's a work or whatever, do you think a luchador movie would work today?
It's hard to say an exact. I mean, with this type of thing, like with luchadors as superheroes, for example, or luchadors as I think it would be hard to be taken seriously at any level. And again, these probably weren't made to be taken so seriously. And I've recently seen a couple, and I'm not going to remember their names, but I recently watched a couple of wrestling movies. They're actually women wrestling movies that were made in the late 70s and one in the early 80s. And another film that came to mind when you were asking them, and I know it's kind of bad because it has an American playing a Mexican wrestler, and that's Nacho Libre.
Yeah, Robert mentioned that last week. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought it was quirky, but I liked that movie and I enjoyed that movie. And I think to say, okay, let's do a luchador movie where it's going to be hard. It would be hard to do without your tongue firmly in your cheek.
Okay.
And I think it could be. I think you'd make a successful one, looking at it that way and doing it in a fun, over the top way. But to say that, to have a serious one and for it to be successful. And again, I think if you look at these films and realize, they were probably having a good time making them things. They're not so serious about them. They were probably just, let's make something that's going to make us some money. It is part of the business.
Yeah.
And they did, and I think they did a good job for that time. So today is the same thing. A lot of times the movies that we enjoy that are a lot of fun, or they're full of stuff, it's like, let's get the people to come out and let's put as much stuff as we can to attract as many people as we can, type of feeling to them. And I think that would be something that could be done. And then there's those wrestling movies. In fact, I have one, I haven't seen it yet. I think you mentioned that you had seen it. I think it's called The Iron Claw.
Yes.
Okay. That's these modern looks at real wrestling, and like these two women's wrestling movies I saw had those feelings to them. And it's like, yeah, it's showing the life of wrestling. And it's another one that I saw. It's one with Henry Winkler in it.
What was that?
And he was the greatest or something, the one and only. No, maybe it was the one and only. I can't remember the name of it, but and that was just I thought that was a wrestling movie, and they had a lot of wrestling in it, and and showing the craziness of the behind the scenes of it. It kind of had that tongue of cheek fun part about it, But at the same time, it's like, yeah, this is the way it is, and this is the way the wrestling business is. And those kind of movies, are still being made. And I think we shouldn't put them and say, oh, but that's not a luchador movie. But it is American wrestling as it is. And we can know, seeing these movies in the 70s, 80s, and even this one that was in the late 2000s, you guys mentioned The Rock and that there's different wrestlers who become actors, but they've never really turned that into wrestling. I'm going to wrestle in my movie, or I'm going to be a professional wrestler hero. But to say a luchador movie, if you say a luchador movie where the wrestler is not just a wrestler, but he's also a private detective, super hero, secret agent, I don't know if that could be pulled off successfully unless you had your tongue in cheek and making it as a fun thing. Could that be done in a way that honors and doesn't not making fun of the movies, but having fun with the movies is what you would want to see,
Okay.
As luchador movie fans.
I like it. No, I think that's a good way to put it. Nacho Libre's come up a couple of times in different conversations I've had with people lately regarding like wrestling movies and luchador movies and that sort of thing. And yeah, we do have wrestling movies, that either look at like the real life, like the Iron Claw or Queen of the Ring, which just came out earlier this year, which I saw and really liked. But yeah, I do want to see a movie where there's a wrestler getting involved and doing stuff, and the fact that he's a wrestler is part of the charm, and that's what I want. So
that's one of the things I would have to investigate, but I don't know. Like when I first came to Mexico City in the early 1990s, there were a couple of movies that came out. One of the favorite wrestlers at that time was, I think his name was El Vampiro. He was the
Yep.
Canadian vampire.
Yep.
And they made a movie with him, and I never saw the movie, but I got the impression that it was like a straight out horror movie where he was wrestling vampires, or he was a vampire wrestler or something. And then there was one of the last one of the last Santo combinations also came out in the early 90s. And I think that was kind of the death of wrestling luchador movies in Mexico, because after that, I don't think I ever saw one ever come out. But I don't know if in the independent Mexican cinema, if anyone's ever made like a luchador, this behind the scenes luchador movie, like some of the American wrestling movies that we've seen. That would be an interesting thing to see. Just how is it for them, a story, a Rocky type story, or a wrestling type story, but with a real Mexican luchador as kind of as the basis of it. I don't think it's been done. I think I would have known about it and been able to track it down and see it, but I would have to investigate to see if anything like that has ever happened since the early 90s. I think that was the last time and I didn't go see them at that time. I just wasn't into it at that time, but I feel bad that I didn't. But now, having been able to catch up and see some of these, it's fun. But I can't see it being done like what we have from the past. Do that style of a luchador movie today would be hard to do, unless it's like a Austin Powers type of thing. Okay, so yeah, he's playing a '60s super spy in the '90s, and it's fun, but it's and it's over the top. At the same time, you sense that he loved those movies, and that's what the kind of people you would have to make to have any success with it. Would have to be a movie that, we love these movies, but we understand that they're over the top, and it's okay to laugh with it. We understand that it's funny. So,
right on. Well, Kenny, I appreciate you doing this. It's been way too long since we've had you on the show, so I really appreciate it.
I love talking about the movies, and I just did one. I did a big long one with Steve Turek about a non-monster movie, Seven Samurai, and just love doing that. And I'm available whenever you want me, and I hope to get some segments. I'm looking forward to your werewolf lineup, and we'll see if I can throw in a couple segments during that month.
Sounds like a plan, man. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode of Bride of Monster Kid Radio. Big thanks to Mark and Kenny for being part of the show this week. It feels like old times having Kenny back on the show. And, you know, Kenny, I told you when we were recording, and if you happen to be listening to this, you are always welcome back to the podcast with a Famous Monsters of Filmland segment or a segment of some other sort. Or let's have you back on as a guest down the line talking about another movie. Let's make that happen. And Mark, your contribution makes the podcast so much better. Thank you for being part of what we do here at Bride of Monster Kid Radio. If you are interested in learning more about Monster Kid Radio, Bride of Monster Kid Radio, Team Death, or anything else, make sure you go to monsterkidradio.net. This is the official website of the podcast. Yes, I know it needs a refreshing, but the links are still good. You can follow along with what we do over there. You can find links to everything that we've talked about here on the show over there. You're going to find links to all of our social media presences over there as well, and our contact information is real easy to find. But in case you'd like me to just tell you what it is, the email address is monsterkidradio@gmail.com, or you can call and leave us a voicemail at 360-524-2484. I have gotten a few voicemails and even a text message to my personal text number. I'm not going to give you that here, but I did get some feedback that I'm going to be going over next week on the show because it looks like Beth is going to be back. And I love doing the feedback when Beth is around because, well, I like to share the feedback with her too. So it looks like Beth is going to be back next week when we cover another Luchador movie as we close out 2025's Lucha de Mayo. So make sure you come back for that. And as soon as we figure out which movie we're going to talk about, I'm going to make sure it's noted over at patreon.com/monsterkidradio. You can follow us on Patreon for free. You don't actually have to become a patron to follow us. And I always post what the next movie is going to be in the version of the show notes over there. And those show notes typically don't go live until Wednesday or Thursday. So there's time for you to get in there now, follow along as a free patron over at patreon.com/monsterkidradio, and you'll be notified as to what Luchador movie we're going to cover. Will it be another Santo film? Will it be a Mil Mascaras film, another Blue Demon film? Or are we going to do something completely off the beaten path? You're going to have to follow along on Patreon to find out, or just come back next week. Or, better yet, do both. Come back next week and follow us on Patreon. Also, you can follow us on Twitch, twitch.tv/monsterkidradio. You might have noticed that this past weekend, I showed like 4 Luchador movies, including a couple of the ones that we've talked about here on the show this year for Lucha de Mayo. I'm probably going to do this again next weekend as well, where we just play a loop of movies. And I'm going to tell you now, I am working real hard to find a Santo film or two, maybe, that I can almost guarantee that you've never seen with English subtitles. I'm going to make you that guarantee right now. Okay, almost guarantee right now. There are a number of these movies that have never been released with an official English subtitle track. But, you know, I want to talk about them. I want to show them. I want to share them with you. Make sure you subscribe, just like us over on Twitch at twitch.tv/monsterkidradio. If you subscribe, well, that helps us out financially as well, and you'll still get notified when we go live next Saturday on the 24th, probably around 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, when we show some more Luchador movies. So make sure you come back for that, and make sure you come back next week for episode 27 of the podcast, where Beth and I will be getting some more Lucha action on here on the show. Bride of Monster Kid Radio is a Team Death production. All original content of Bride of Monster Kid Radio is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 Unported license. You can learn more about Team Death, our other projects like Death Designs, Mail Order Zombie, the Team Death YouTube channel, and more at www.teamdeath.com. Remember, death is spelled D-E-T-H. All previous episodes of this podcast, as well as the original Monster Kid Radio podcast, are available at www.monsterkidradio.net. Please rate and review Bride of Monster Kid Radio wherever you download your favorite podcasts. Confital Bay is copyright 2025, the Bucannan. This is a single that they've released on Spotify. You can look them up on Spotify, or you can actually buy the single over on Bandcamp. You can go check that out over at thebucannan.bandcamp.com. Let me tell you how that's spelled. V is THE, and then BUCANNAN.bandcamp.com. I'll make sure there's links in the show notes, of course. Make sure you check them out and let them know that you heard about them here on Bride of Monster Kid Radio. You can also find them on YouTube, Instagram, and a number of other places as well. Just make sure you support them because we love supporting the bands that support us by letting us play their music here on the show. My name is Derek M. Cook. I will talk to everybody next week when we wrap up 2025's Lucha de Mayo. Ciao, or should I say adios? I've not been saying it all month, but you know what? Ciao and adios.